The black ships came from the void between stars. They moved like dark shadows against the star field, their hulls gleaming with alien metal. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human warship Defiant, watching the enemy fleet approach. Earth's solar system. His hands gripped the metal railing as alarms echoed through the corridors. How many ships? Jake asked his weapons officer. 37 vessels, sir, Lieutenant Roy Baker replied, his voice tight with worry. They're bigger than anything we've ever built. Jake nodded slowly. He had commanded the Defiant for 3 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Earth's first contact with alien life was not going to be peaceful. The ships moved with purpose, their formation perfect and deadly. On Luna Station, Admiral Lisa Carter watched the same displays. She had gray hair and tired eyes, but her mind was sharp. For 20 years, she had prepared Earth's defenses for this day. Now it was here, and she felt the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. Send the message, she ordered. All frequencies. The communication went out across space in every language Earth knew. It was simple. We come in peace. We wish to talk. The alien ships did not slow down. Commander Vexthal stood in the command center of his flagship. He was tall and thin, with purple skin that gleamed under the ship's lights. His race, the Zilithians, had conquered 47 worlds. Earth would be number 48. These humans, he said to his second officer, they seem weak. Their ships are small. Their weapons are simple. Yes, Commander, replied Sub-Commander Kixmuth. This should be easy. Vexthal had read the reports. Humans lived on only one world. They fought among themselves. They had no real space fleet. Just a few ships built for defense. Nothing more. Send them our terms, Vexthal ordered. The message reached Earth within minutes. Dr. Amy Walsh, the planet's best language expert, worked with her team to decode it. The alien words were strange, but their meaning was clear. They want us to surrender, Amy told Admiral Carter over the communication link. 72 hours. If we don't give up, they'll destroy every city on Earth. Lisa Carter felt cold fear in her stomach. Can we fight them? Our ships are no match for theirs, reported General Paul Davis from the war room. They have better weapons, better shields, better everything. On Earth's surface, Dr. Nathan Cole was studying the first images of the alien ships. He was a scientist who had spent his life wondering about life among the stars. Now he wished he had never found it. Look at this, he said to his assistant. Their ship design is perfect. No wasted space, no unnecessary parts. These beings have been building warships for a very long time. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison prepared his crew for battle. The Defiant was Earth's most advanced ship, but it felt like a toy compared to the alien fleet. His crew was good, but they were about to face an enemy that had never lost a war. Sir, called out Major Susan Clark from the pilot seat, I'm getting strange readings from the planet's surface. Jake moved to her station. What kind of readings? Energy signatures. Very faint, but they're coming from old monuments. Stonehenge, the pyramids, places like that. Jake frowned. Probably just electrical interference from all the panic down. There. But Susan wasn't so sure. The readings were too organized, too purposeful. She had been a pilot for 10 years, and she had never seen anything like this dot in a small office in the Vatican. Father Marcus Stone was reading old books by candlelight. The power grid was being saved for the military, so most of the city was dark. But Marcus had found something important in the ancient texts. The star-touched ones, he whispered to himself, reading from a book that was 800 years old. They will return when the Watchers call. He had seen similar words in books from different countries, different religions. All of them spoke of people who came from the stars long ago. People who looked like humans, but were much more. Marcus reached for his phone to call someone, anyone who might listen. But who would believe an old priest reading fairy tales? Dr. Helen Price was not reading fairy tales. She was a quantum physicist working in a secret facility in Alaska. Her instruments were showing impossible readings. Every ancient site on Earth was giving off energy. The pattern was too perfect to be natural. This makes no sense, she told her team. These monuments are thousands of years old. They're just stone and metal. They can't generate quantum energy. But the readings were real. And they were getting stronger. Commander Vexthal watched his fleet move closer to Earth. The humans had sent more messages, all asking for peace. He almost felt sorry for them. They seemed so young, so hopeful. But the Zilithian Empire had rules. Weak species must surrender or die. Prepare the bombardment weapons, he ordered. If they don't surrender in 72 hours, we destroy their major cities first. Then we take what we want from their world. His officers nodded and began their preparations. None of them noticed the small energy readings their sensors were picking up from Earth's surface. The readings were too weak to be weapons, too scattered to be defenses. They were wrong. As the alien deadline approached, Jake Morrison stood in his quarters, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow, humanity would either surrender or fight and die. He thought about his wife back on Earth, about the children who would never grow up if the aliens attacked. He didn't know that deep beneath the ground, in places his ancestors had built, thousands of years ago, something was waking up, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. The 72 hours were almost over. Earth's fate hung in the balance, and neither the humans nor the aliens knew what was really about to happen. The first part of humanity's greatest test was about to begin. The first sign appeared at dawn on the second day. A farmer in England was walking past Stonehenge when he saw it. The ancient stones were glowing with a soft blue light. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was seeing things. But the light was real, within. Hours, reports came from around the world. The Great Pyramid in Egypt was glowing. The Easter Island statues were humming with energy. Ancient temples in Asia were warming up, even though it was winter. Dr. Helen Price got the call at 3 a.m. Her assistant was excited and scared at the same time. "Doctor, you need to see this. The energy readings are off the charts. Every ancient site on Earth is active." Helen rushed to her laboratory. The instruments showed energy patterns she had never seen before. The power was coming from deep underground, from structures that weren't supposed to exist. "This is impossible," she whispered. "These monuments are just stones. They can't generate this kind of energy." But the numbers didn't lie. Something was happening, something that science couldn't explain. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was flying a scout mission when his ship's computers started acting strange. He was near the Pyramid of Giza when his weapon system suddenly became more powerful. His engines ran smoother. His shields grew stronger. "Control, this is Turner." He radioed back to base. "Something's wrong with my ship. All systems are performing above normal levels." "Defying above normal," came the reply. Alex looked at his readings. "My ship is running at 200% efficiency. That should be impossible." His co-pilot, Major Susan Clark, was studying the energy readings from the pyramid below. "Alex, look at this. The energy from the pyramid is somehow connecting to our ship's computer." Alex frowned. "That's crazy. How can a pile of old stones connect to our technology?" Susan didn't have an answer, but she was getting strange feelings, like memories that weren't her own. She saw images of star maps, of technologies that didn't exist yet. The visions were brief, but very clear. "I think something is happening to me," she told Alex quietly. Commander Vexthal was getting worried. His sensors were detecting the energy signatures from Earth's surface, but he didn't understand what they meant. The readings were too organized to be natural, but too weak to be weapons. "Sub-Commander Kixmoth," he called. "What are these energy readings?" Kixmoth studied the data carefully. "I don't know, sir. They don't match any known technology, but the patterns suggest intelligence behind them." Vexthal felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans seemed primitive, but these readings suggested something else entirely. "Keep monitoring," he ordered, "and prepare for any surprises." Dr. Nathan Cole was working day and night to understand the alien language. His team had made progress, but what they learned was disturbing. The aliens had words for humans that they used among themselves, words they didn't use when talking to Earth. "They call us the Inheritors," Amy Walsh told him. But when I asked them what that meant, they wouldn't answer. Nathan felt his blood run cold. Inheritors of what? I don't know. But the way they say it, it's like they're afraid of us. That seemed impossible. The aliens had better weapons, better ships, better everything. What could they possibly fear from humans? Father Marcus Stone was still reading his ancient books, but now he had help. Other historians and religious scholars were calling him, sharing their own discoveries. The pattern was clear across all cultures and all time periods. "Look at this," said Dr. Peter Williams, a historian from Oxford. "The Mayans wrote about sky people who went to sleep in the earth. The ancient Chinese spoke of star ancestors who would return. The Egyptians called them the first ones," Marcus nodded. "And they all described the same thing. People who came from the stars, who looked like us, who had great power. But where did they go?" Peter asked. Marcus looked at the reports coming in from around the world. Ancient monuments glowing with energy. Maybe they didn't go anywhere. Maybe they're still here. Dr. Helen Price was seeing the same thing. Her instruments showed that the energy wasn't coming from the monuments themselves. It was coming from something deep underground, something that connected all the ancient sites around the world. "It's like a network," she told her team. "All these sites are connected by some kind of quantum field we've never detected before." Her assistant, Dr. Gary Adams, was studying the patterns. "Doctor, look at this. The energy spikes happen when people gather near the monuments. The more people, the stronger the signal." Helen stared at the data. "You're saying the energy responds to humans?" "Not just responds. It's like it's connecting to them somehow." Captain Jake Morrison was experiencing this connection firsthand. His ship, the Defiant, was performing better than ever before. His crew was working with perfect coordination. Their reaction times were faster. Their thinking was clearer. "Sir," reported Chief Engineer Roy Baker, "the ship's computer is learning from us. It's adapting to our thought patterns, becoming more efficient." Jake felt it too. When he sat in the captain's chair, he could sense the ship's systems as if they were part of his own body. The feeling was strange, but not unpleasant. "How is this possible?" he asked. Roy shook his head. "I don't know, sir, but it's happening to other ships too. The entire fleet is reporting similar improvements." On the alien flagship, Commander Vexthal was receiving reports from his intelligence officers. They had intercepted human communications about the glowing monuments and the energy readings. "Sir," reported his chief analyst, "our database shows similar phenomena on other worlds we've visited, always associated with ruins of the architect civilization." Vexthal felt his blood freeze. "The architects? Are you certain?" "The energy signatures match, sir, but that's impossible. The architects disappeared thousands of years ago." Vexthal knew the stories. Every species in the galaxy knew about the architects. They were the first great civilization, the ones who built the ancient technologies that other species still couldn't understand. They had ruled a vast part of the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing. If the architects are involved, Vextal said slowly, then these humans are not what they seem. The deadline was approaching. Only 24 hours remained before the Zilithians would attack. But both sides were beginning to realize that this was not going to be an ordinary conquest. On Earth, millions of people were gathering at the ancient sites. They came without being asked, drawn by something they couldn't explain. As they gathered, the energy grew stronger. Susan Clark was flying another mission when the visions came again. This time, they were clearer. She saw great cities among the stars. She saw technologies that could heal worlds or destroy them. She saw beings who looked human, but were something more. "Alex," she said quietly, "I think I'm remembering something." "But it's not my memory." Alex looked at her with concern. "What do you mean?" "I think these monuments, this energy, it's waking something up inside us, something that was always there, just sleeping." The 72 hours were almost over. The alien fleet was preparing to attack. But deep beneath the earth, in chambers, that had been sealed for thousands of years, ancient systems were coming online. Humanity's true nature was about to be revealed. The 72 hours were up. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant, waiting for the alien attack. His crew was ready to fight, even though they knew they would probably die. But the attack never came. Instead, a message arrived from the alien fleet. Commander Vextel wanted to talk. "Admiral Carter," Jake reported over the communication link, "the alien commander is requesting a meeting. He wants to come aboard our ship." Lisa Carter was surprised. "Why would he want to talk now? The deadline is over." "I don't know, ma'am. But he sounds ... scared." An hour later, Vextel's shuttle docked with the Defiant. The alien commander was tall and thin, with purple skin and large dark eyes. When he walked onto the bridge, his hands were shaking. "Captain Morrison," Vextel said through his translator device, "we need to talk. There has been a terrible mistake." Jake studied the alien's face. "What kind of mistake?" Vextel took a deep breath. "We are not the first to find your world. We thought you were dead. We thought your species was extinct." "What are you talking about?" Jake asked. "For thousands of years, 7 different civilizations have found Earth. All of them sent reports that humans were gone. Extinct. Some said you had left the planet. Others said you had died out. We came here expecting to find empty ruins." "Admiral." Carter joined the conversation by video link. "You're saying other aliens have been here before?" "Yes," Vextel nodded. "And they all fled. Something scared them away, but they never said what." Dr. Amy Walsh was listening to the conversation from her translation center. She had been studying the alien language for 3 days, and she had found something disturbing in their databases. "Admiral," she interrupted, "I've been analyzing their computer files. They have dozens of words that relate to humans. Words like, first ones, ancient enemy, and the sleeping gods." Vextel's face went pale. "You understand our language?" "Enough to know you're not telling us everything," Amy replied. "Your people aren't conquerors. You're scavengers. You only attack worlds that have been abandoned by someone else." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Abandoned by who? Vextel looked around the bridge nervously. By the architects. The first great civilization. They built cities on thousands of worlds, then disappeared. We thought you were just another species that had been left behind." "But we're not," said Susan Clark from her pilot station. She had been quiet during the meeting, but now she spoke up. "We're not the ones who were left behind. We're the ones who left." Everyone turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Susan's eyes were distant, as if she was seeing something far away. "The visions I've been having, they're not visions. They're memories. Genetic memories passed down through our DNA. Dr. Nathan Cole, who had been studying the alien databases, suddenly understood. The architects. They weren't aliens at all. They were human. The bridge fell silent. Commander Vexthel was staring at the humans with growing fear. "That's impossible," he whispered. "The architects ruled half the galaxy. They had technology beyond anything we've ever seen. And then they disappeared," Susan continued, her voice dreamy. "They didn't die. They didn't leave. They chose to sleep. They scattered themselves across suitable worlds and went into a kind of hibernation." Dr. Helen Price's voice came over the communication system from her laboratory in Alaska. "The energy. Readings make sense now. The monuments aren't just markers. They're part of a network. A network designed to wake up the sleeping architects when the time was right." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying we're not just humans. We're the descendants of this architect civilization." "More than descendants," Susan said. "We are the architects. We just forgot who we were." Commander Vexthel was backing toward the door. "This cannot be true. The architects were gods among the stars. Humans are primitive, weak. Are we?" asked Chief Engineer Roy Baker. He was looking at his instruments with new understanding. "Our ship is performing at levels that should be impossible. Our computers are learning from us. We're interfacing with technology in ways that shouldn't work." Dr. Nathan Cole was accessing the alien databases with ease now, his mind somehow understanding systems that had been designed by completely different species. The architects didn't disappear. They evolved. They chose to become fully biological again, to experience life as natural beings. But why? Admiral Carter asked. Father Marcus Stone's voice came over the communication system. The old priest had been listening from his office in the Vatican. "Because they were lonely. I've been reading the ancient texts. The architects were the only advanced species in the galaxy. They ruled over primitive civilizations, but they had no equals. Number. Friends. So they chose to sleep," Susan continued, "and wait for other species to evolve, to grow, to become worthy of friendship instead of subjects." Vexthel was shaking now. "The trigger. What was the trigger that woke you up?" Dr. Helen Price answered. "From her laboratory. Contact with a species that had developed beyond simple conquest. A species capable of growth and creativity. Your people, Commander. You're the first civilization we've encountered that creates instead of just destroys." "But we do destroy," Vexthel protested. "We've conquered 47 worlds." "You've conquered worlds that were already empty," Amy Walsh corrected. "You've never fought a war against an equal enemy. You've never had to grow or adapt. Until now." Jake was beginning to understand. The other alien species that found Earth. They weren't advanced enough to trigger the awakening. They were just scavengers, like you thought you were. "But we're different," Vexthel said slowly. "We build things. We create art. We have philosophy and science." "Exactly," Susan smiled. "You're ready for contact with equals. That's what woke us up." Around the world, the awakening was accelerating. Millions of humans were gathering at the ancient sites. As they did, their minds began to change. They started to remember things their ancestors had known. Technologies that had been lost for thousands of years became clear to them. Dr. Helen Price was watching the readings with amazement. "The quantum network is fully active now. I'm detecting similar energy signatures from other star systems. There are more sleeping architect colonies out there, and they're all waking up." Captain Jake Morrison felt the change in himself. His understanding of the ship's systems was becoming perfect. He could sense the quantum fields that held the universe together. He could feel the minds of his crew as they underwent the same transformation. "Commander Vexthel," he said gently, You don't need to be afraid. We're not going to conquer you. We're not going to rule over you. We want to be your friends." Vexthal looked around the bridge at the humans. They were changing before his eyes, becoming something more than they had been. But they were still kind, still gentle. "What happens now?" he asked. Admiral Carter answered from Luna Station. "Now we learn from each other. Your people have explored the galaxy while we slept. You know what's out there. We have technologies that were developed over millions of years. Together, we can build something better than either of us could create alone." The revelation was complete. Humanity was not the primitive species it had appeared to be. They were the awakened remnants of the galaxy's first great civilization, and they were ready to take their place among the stars once again. But this time, they would not rule. They would teach. They would help. They would be the friends they had always wanted to have. The universe was about to change forever. The awakening spread across Earth like wildfire. In New York, construction worker Bill Martinez found himself understanding quantum physics without ever studying it. In Tokyo, school teacher Linda Chong discovered she could interface with computers, using only her thoughts. In London, Farmer Tom Williams realized he could sense the energy patterns of living things. Dr. Helen Price was documenting everything from her laboratory in Alaska. The transformation wasn't random. Each person was developing abilities that matched their natural talents, but enhanced far beyond normal human limits. "It's like we're becoming specialized," she told her team. "Engineers are developing perfect understanding of complex systems. Doctors are gaining the ability to sense disease at the molecular level. Artists are creating works that seem to generate their own energy." Captain Jake Morrison was experiencing the change firsthand. His connection to the Defiant was now complete. He could feel every system in the ship as if it were part of his own body. When he thought about a course correction, the ship responded instantly. When he needed information, the computer shared it directly with his mind. "This is incredible," he told Admiral Carter during their daily briefing. "The ship and I are working as one unit now. I can process battle information faster than our computers used to be able to calculate it." Chief Engineer Roy Baker was having similar experiences. "Sir, the ship's AI is learning from all of us. It's becoming more creative, more intuitive. Yesterday, it suggested a new engine configuration that improved our speed by 40%. But the most dramatic changes were happening to the people who spent time near the ancient monuments." Susan Clark had been stationed at the Pyramid of Giza to study the energy readings. After 3 days there, she could see quantum energy patterns with her naked eyes. "The network is enormous," she reported to Dr. Nathan Cole. "I can sense connections reaching across the galaxy. There are other colonies out there, other groups of sleeping architects, and they're all waking up." Dr. Cole was experiencing his own transformation. His ability to understand alien languages had become perfect. He could now read the databases of 6 different species as easily as reading English. More importantly, he was beginning to understand the deeper history of the galaxy. The architects weren't just advanced, he told Amy Walsh. They were the first species to develop true quantum consciousness. They could connect their minds across vast distances. They could share knowledge instantly. That's how they built such an advanced civilization so quickly. Amy was studying the ancient texts that Father Marcus Stone had discovered. With her enhanced abilities, she could now read languages that had been dead for thousands of years. The architects faced a choice, she said. They could continue to rule over primitive species, or they could give those species time to develop. They chose to sleep and wait for others to catch up. Commander Vexthal was still aboard the Defiant, working with the human crew to understand what was happening. His own people were frightened by the changes they were seeing in the humans, but Vexthal was fascinated. "Your abilities are growing every day," he observed. How far will this go? Jake Morrison considered the question. I don't think we're becoming superhuman. I think we're becoming fully human. We're accessing abilities that were always part of our species, just dormant. Dr. Helen Price confirmed this from her research. The genetic changes are following patterns that were already in human DNA. We're not becoming something new. We're becoming what we were always meant to be. The awakening was not limited to Earth. Susan Clark's quantum senses had detected other colonies throughout the galaxy, and they were all undergoing the same transformation. Humans who had been living simple lives on frontier worlds were suddenly building technologies that surpassed anything the Zilithians had ever seen. There are hundreds of colonies, Susan reported. Maybe thousands. They were all established during the Great Diaspora, when the architects scattered themselves across the galaxy. Admiral Carter was coordinating contact with these rediscovered human settlements. We've made contact with 17 colonies so far. They're all experiencing the awakening. They're all developing new technologies. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just one primitive species on one small world. They were a galactic civilization that had been sleeping for millennia, and now they were waking up. But the awakening brought challenges as well as opportunities. Not all humans were adapting well to their new abilities. Some were overwhelmed by the sudden expansion of their consciousness. Others were frightened by the responsibility that came with advanced technology. Dr. Amy Walsh was working with psychologists around the world to help people cope with the changes. We need to remember that we're still human, she reminded everyone. We still have human emotions, human needs, human weaknesses. The technology doesn't change that. Father Marcus Stone had become an unofficial spiritual advisor for the awakening. The ancient texts speak of wisdom as well as power, he told groups of confused humans. The architects learned that knowledge without compassion leads to loneliness. That's why they chose to sleep. They chose to start over. The Zilithians were struggling to understand their place in this new galaxy. Commander Vex Thiel's superiors had ordered him to withdraw immediately, but it was too late. Human ships, enhanced by their awakened crews, could now outrun anything in the Zilithian fleet. We cannot escape, Vex Thiel reported to his homeworld. But I do not think we need to. These humans... They are not conquerors. They want to help us. Sub-Commander Kicksmith was studying the human technologies with growing amazement. Sir, they're sharing their knowledge freely. They're teaching us how to improve our own ships, our own weapons. Why would they do this? Vex Thol smiled. Because they remember being lonely. They don't want to be alone anymore. The breakthrough came when Dr. Nathan Cole discovered the archives. Hidden within the quantum network that connected all the ancient monuments was a vast library of information. The complete history of the architect civilization was stored there, waiting for their descendants to rediscover it. This is incredible, he told the assembled scientists and government leaders. Everything is here. The reasons for the diaspora, the technology they developed, the philosophical frameworks they created, it's all preserved in quantum storage. The archives revealed that the architects had been peaceful by choice, not by nature. They had developed weapons that could destroy entire star systems, but they had chosen not to use them. They had the ability to control other species completely, but they had chosen to step back and let others develop freely. They were tired of being gods, Dr. Cole summarized. They wanted to be people again. Admiral Carter was coordinating the establishment of new communication networks between the awakened colonies. We're not rebuilding the old architect empire, she made clear. We're creating something new. A network of equal partners, sharing knowledge and resources. The quantum network that had awakened humanity was being expanded and improved. Dr. Helen Price was working with awakened humans across the galaxy to create communication systems that could connect any 2 points in space instantly. We're not just talking to each other," she explained. "We're sharing consciousness. Scientists on Earth can collaborate directly with engineers on colonies hundreds of light years away. We're becoming a true galactic community." Captain Jake Morrison was leading the first joint missions between human and Zilithian crews. The cooperation was remarkable. Zilithian knowledge of current galactic conditions, combined with awakened human technology, was producing results that neither species could have achieved alone. "We're finding other species," he reported. "Civilizations that have been hiding in the outer regions of the galaxy. They've been waiting for the architects to return." The awakening was accelerating toward its final phase. Millions of humans now had access to technologies that had been lost for thousands of years. The ancient monuments had transformed from simple stone structures into massive quantum computers, processing information at speeds that defied understanding. But the most important change was not technological. It was philosophical. Humanity was remembering not just how to build advanced civilizations, but why they should build them. The purpose was not conquest or domination. It was growth, cooperation, and the joy of discovery. The galaxy was about to change forever, and humanity was ready to lead that change. Not as rulers, but as teachers. Not as conquerors, but as friends. The final awakening was about to begin. 6 months after the first contact, the galaxy was a different place. The awakening had reached its full potential, and humanity had reclaimed its place among the stars. But they had not returned as conquerors. They had returned as gardeners, helping other species grow and flourish. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded not just the Defiant, but an entire fleet of ships that combined human and Zilithian technology. The vessels were works of art as much as weapons, beautiful and powerful, but designed for exploration and protection, not conquest. "Status report," he requested from his bridge crew, which now included both humans and Zilithians working side by side. "All systems operating at optimal levels," reported Subcommander Kixmouth, who had chosen to serve aboard the human flagship. "The quantum network is stable across 47 star systems." Jake smiled. The quantum network that had awakened. Humanity was now serving as the backbone of galactic communication. Any species that joined the network could communicate instantly with any other member, regardless of distance. Dr. Helen Price was working on Earth to expand the network even further. The ancient monuments had been transformed into massive quantum resonators, but they were just the beginning. New installations were being built on dozens of worlds, each one designed to enhance the natural abilities of whatever species lived there. "We're not just giving technology to other species," she explained to a gathering of galactic ambassadors. "We're helping them discover their own potential. Every species has unique abilities that can be enhanced through quantum resonance." The results were remarkable. The Zilithians, who had been scavengers and conquerors, were discovering artistic abilities they never knew they possessed. Their ships, once purely functional, were now beautiful works of art that could travel faster and farther than ever before. "We never imagined we could create such beauty," Commander Vexthal told Admiral Carter during a diplomatic meeting. "Your people have taught us that strength and beauty can exist together." Admiral Carter nodded. "That's what the architects learned long ago. Technology without wisdom leads to destruction. Beauty without purpose leads to emptiness. But when you combine them all, you get something greater than the sum of its parts." The awakening had revealed other species that had been hiding in the galaxy's outer regions. The ethereals were beings of pure energy who had been waiting for thousands of years for the architects to return. The crystalline collective were silicon-based, life forms who had preserved ancient knowledge in their mineral structures. The void swimmers were creatures who lived in the space between stars, watching and waiting. Dr. Nathan Cole was working with representatives from all these species to establish the first truly galactic government. It was not an empire or a federation, but something new, a cooperative network where each species contributed its unique abilities to the common good. "We're calling it the Galactic Accord," he explained to the assembled delegates. "Not because we're in agreement about everything, but because we're in harmony. Like instruments in an orchestra, each species plays a different part, but together we create something beautiful." The Accord was headquartered on Earth, but not because humanity was in charge. Earth had become the center of the quantum network, the point where all the galactic communications flowed together. It was a natural choice for the seat of government. Father Marcus Stone had been chosen as Earth's cultural ambassador. The old priest found himself working with beings he had only read about in ancient texts. His job was to help different species understand each other's cultures and beliefs. Every species has its own way of understanding the universe, he told a gathering of religious leaders from across the galaxy. The ethereals see reality as patterns of energy. The crystalline collective experiences time differently than we do. The void swimmers understand space in ways we're just beginning to learn, but we all share the same desire to grow and learn. The transformation of human society had been remarkable. Dr. Amy Walsh was now directing the Galactic Institute of Languages, where representatives from dozens of species worked together to create new forms of communication. They weren't just translating words, but sharing thoughts and emotions across completely different forms of consciousness. "We're not trying to make everyone the same," Amy explained. "We're trying to make it possible for everyone to understand each other." A crystalline being thinks in geological timescales. A human thinks in years and decades. An ethereal thinks in quantum moments. But through the network, we can share these different perspectives. Chief Engineer Roy Baker had become the director of the Galactic Engineering Corps. His job was to help different species combine their technologies in ways that benefited everyone. The results were beyond anything anyone had imagined. "Look at this," he said, showing holographic displays to a group of young engineers from 12 different species. "When we combine human quantum technology with Zilithian energy systems and crystalline data storage, we get computers that can process information at speeds that approach the limits of physics itself." The new technologies were being used not for war, but for healing. Diseases that had plagued species for millennia were being cured. Worlds that had been damaged by pollution or war were being restored. The galaxy was becoming a garden, carefully tended by its inhabitants. Susan Clark had become the chief navigator for the Galactic Exploration Fleet. Her quantum senses, enhanced by the awakening, could detect habitable worlds from light years away. She was leading the search for new species that might be ready to join the Accord. "We found 17 new civilizations in the past 3 months," she reported during a fleet meeting. "Most of them are still developing, but 3 are advanced. Enough for contact. We're preparing first contact protocols that respect their unique cultures." The first contact protocols were very different from the old days of conquest and domination. Instead of demanding surrender, the Accord offered friendship. Instead of imposing their technology, they shared knowledge. Instead of ruling, they taught. Dr. Helen Price was working on the most ambitious project yet, a network that would connect not just star systems, but entire galaxies. "The architects weren't limited to this galaxy," she explained to a council of scientists. "There are dormant colonies in other galaxies, waiting to be awakened. We're going to reconnect them all." The project would take centuries to complete, but that was fine. The awakened humans had learned patience from their long sleep. They were thinking in terms of millions of years, not decades. Commander Vex Thal had become the first non-human admiral in the combined fleet. His ships were exploring the galaxy's outer regions, searching for lost civilizations and forgotten knowledge. His crews were mixed, with humans, Zilithians, and representatives from other species working together. My people were scavengers, he told his mixed crew during a mission briefing. We took what others had left behind. But now we're explorers. We're creating new knowledge, new art, new ways of living. The humans didn't just wake up from their sleep. They woke up all of us. The galaxy was full of surprises. Ancient ruins on distant worlds were revealing technologies that even the architects had never developed. Some species had evolved abilities that complemented human quantum consciousness in unexpected ways. The universe was larger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. But the greatest discovery was not technological. It was philosophical. The awakened humans had remembered something that all the ancient texts had tried to teach, that true power came not from ruling others, but from helping them grow. Captain Jake Morrison was leading the first expedition to another galaxy. His ship, enhanced with technologies from a dozen different species, could travel distances that would have been impossible just a year ago. His crew included representatives from every member of the Accord. We're not going to conquer, he told them as they prepared for the journey. We're going to learn. We're going to make friends. We're going to help other species discover their own potential. The ship disappeared into the quantum tunnel, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of an entire galaxy. Behind them, the Milky Way continued to grow and change as more species joined the Accord and added their unique gifts to the common good. On Earth, the ancient monuments continued to glow with soft blue light. Children played in their shadows, not knowing that they were the descendants of a civilization that had once ruled the stars. But they were learning, growing, preparing for the day when they too would take their place among the stars. The galaxy had been transformed, not by conquest or domination, but by friendship and cooperation. The awakened humans had not returned as gods or rulers. They had returned as teachers, gardeners, and friends. The universe was vast and full of wonders. And for the first time in thousands of years, humanity was not alone. They had found their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners. In the greatest adventure of all, the discovery of what intelligent life could accomplish when it worked together, the story was just beginning. The galaxy was full of sleeping civilizations, waiting to be awakened. Other galaxies beckoned with their own mysteries and challenges. The universe was infinite, and so were the possibilities for growth, discovery, and friendship. Humanity had remembered its greatest power, not the ability to destroy, but the ability to create.
The stars twinkled peacefully in the black sky above Earth. For centuries, humans had looked up at those stars and wondered if they were alone. Today, they got their answer. Captain Susan Mitchell yawned as she watched her monitors on Space Station Delta. The orbital defense platform circled Earth silently, one of 12 such stations built after the nations of Earth finally united their space programs. Her night shift was almost over, and nothing exciting ever happened here anyway. The alert sound made her jump. Susan spilled her coffee as she turned to the main screen. Something was coming into the solar system, something big. Computer confirm. Reading, she said, her heart beating faster. Multiple objects detected entering solar system beyond Neptune's orbit. Objects appear artificial in nature. Susan's fingers flew across the control panel. Magnify Sector 7. The screen zoomed in and Susan's breath caught in her throat. Ships. Massive ships unlike anything humans had built. Their dark hulls reflected no light, but their shapes were clear against the stars. She counted 5, then 10, then 20. Too many. This is Captain Mitchell on Delta Station, she said into her communicator. Code Phoenix, I repeat, Code Phoenix. This is not a drill. Within minutes, command centers worldwide lit up with activity. In Washington, General John Rivera was pulled from a dinner party. In Beijing, Admiral Ling was woken from sleep. In Moscow, Colonel Petrov canceled his vacation. Code Phoenix meant only one thing: first contact with alien life. But no one had expected first contact to look like an invasion fleet. Dr. Alan Russell was eating a sandwich in his small office at NASA when they called him. As Earth's leading expert on possible alien life, he had spent decades preparing for this moment. But as the Pentagon helicopter lifted him toward the emergency meeting, he felt cold fear in his stomach. The photos they showed him didn't look like peaceful visitors. President. Diane Bennett sat at the head of the table in the underground command center. Leaders from every major nation were connected by secure video. For once, there were no arguments between countries. The threat facing them was too big for old conflicts. Dr. Russell, what are we looking at? The president asked. Alan stood, his hands shaking slightly as he pointed to the images. 27 ships, each roughly 3 kilometers long. Their technology is far beyond ours. They appear to be in attack formation. Have they made contact? Asked the Russian president. Not yet, General Rivera said. But they're advancing toward Earth at a steady pace. They'll reach lunar orbit in approximately 70 hours. The Chinese premier spoke next. Can we fight them? The room fell silent. Earth had weapons in space, missiles, lasers, even a few experimental plasma cannons, but nothing that could match what they were seeing on the screens. We should try to communicate first, Dr. Russell suggested. They may not have hostile intentions. No one looked convinced, but they agreed. Earth's most powerful transmitters sent messages of peace and welcome in every known human language, plus mathematical sequences that any advanced civilization should understand. For 12 hours there was no response. The alien fleet continued its approach, silent and seemingly unstoppable. Then, on every communications device on Earth, from military channels to civilian phones, a message appeared. The translation computers worked quickly to decode it. The message was simple. Attention inhabitants of Sol 3. You are now within territory claimed by the Galactic Imperium. Your planet has resources we require. Surrender your world and accept Imperium rule, or face elimination. You have 72 hours to comply. In homes across Earth, people gathered around screens as their leaders addressed them. President Bennett spoke calmly, but her eyes showed her concern. My fellow citizens of Earth, today we face the greatest challenge in human history. An alien force has entered our solar system and demanded our surrender. I want to assure you that the United Governments of Earth are working together to address this threat. We ask for calm and cooperation during this crisis. What she didn't say was that Earth's military leaders saw no way to win against such advanced technology. In a secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, the World Defense Council gathered. Military commanders, scientists, and world leaders all faced the same impossible choice: surrender or be destroyed. We need more time, said Admiral Ling. Our lunar bases have been working on new shield technology. It's not ready yet, but with a few more days. We don't have a few more days, General Rivera replied. We have 3 days and then they start firing. Dr. Russell studied the alien message again. Something doesn't add up. If they're so powerful, why give us time at all? Why not just attack? Standard conquest protocol, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Dr. Eve Daniels enter the room. She walked with a limp, her white hair tied back tightly. Few people knew that Dr. Daniels had spent 40 years studying a small piece of alien technology found in the desert decades ago. What do you mean? President Bennett asked. They've done this before, Eve explained. They arrive, threaten, demonstrate power, and expect surrender. It's efficient. No need to waste resources fighting if fear alone will make us give up. So what do we do? Asked the British Prime Minister on the video screen. Eve's eyes narrowed. We show them humans don't scare easily. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared. On the main screen, they watched as one of the alien ships fired a beam of intense light. The beam struck Neptune's smallest moon, Naiad. In an instant, the moon exploded into dust. That was their demonstration, Eve said calmly while others stared in horror. Now they expect us to beg for mercy. President Bennett stood up straighter. Then they don't know humans very well, do they? General Rivera, Admiral Ling, I want every weapon we have ready to deploy. Dr. Russell, Dr. Daniels, find me a weakness in their technology. She turned to face the assembled leaders of Earth. "We have 72 hours to prepare. The Imperium thinks we'll surrender. Let's show them how wrong they are." As Susan Mitchell watched from Space Station Delta, she saw something unprecedented. Ships from every nation on Earth moving into defensive positions. Russian cosmonauts worked alongside American astronauts. Chinese space stations coordinated with European satellites. For the first time in history, humanity stood truly united. The Empire had threatened Earth. Now humanity would respond. The clock was ticking. 60 hours remained until the Imperium's deadline. In orbit around Earth, Captain Susan Mitchell watched as civilian space stations were evacuated. Only military personnel remained in space now. From her position on Delta Station, she could see the Earth's new defense fleet gathering. It looked impressive until she glanced at the alien ships approaching from beyond the moon. Their massive dark shapes made Earth's best spacecraft look like toys. "Captain, we've received new orders," her second-in-command said. "We're to assist with deployment of the satellite network." Susan nodded. For the past 24 hours, every launch facility on Earth had been sending up small satellites. Alone, they seemed useless against the Imperium threat. But Susan had heard rumors of a plan. Meanwhile, in the underground command center, Dr. Alan Russell worked without sleep. His eyes were red as he studied the data from the alien ships. "There's something here," he muttered as Dr. Eve Daniels limped over to his workstation. "Their shield technology. It pulses at regular intervals." Eve leaned closer to the screen. "Every 7.3 seconds, she said quietly. "Just like the fragment I've been studying for decades." General John Rivera entered the room, his uniform wrinkled. "From the long hours." "Please tell me you found something we can use," he said. Eve turned to him with a glimmer of hope in her tired eyes. "We might have. Their shield technology appears similar to experimental systems we developed from the Arizona crash site." "How similar?" the general asked. "Similar enough that we might be able to disrupt it," Alan explained. "But we'd need to get close, much closer than their weapons would allow." The general frowned. "So it's useless?" "Not necessarily," Eve said. "What if we could get them to lower their guard, even for a few seconds?" In another part of the facility, President Diane Bennett sat with Ambassador Peter Lee, Earth's most skilled diplomat. They were rehearsing a very different kind of approach. I need to sound scared but not broken," the president explained. "Willing to negotiate but not quite ready to surrender." Ambassador Lee nodded. "The goal is to buy time, but these aliens won't be easy to fool. They've likely done this many times before." "Then we'll give them what they expect," the president said firmly. "A frightened species considering surrender, while we prepare our surprise." Aboard the Imperium flagship, Admiral Krell watched the blue planet with cold eyes. This was his 43rd conquest, and it always followed the same pattern. First came shock at the Imperium's arrival, then terror after the demonstration of power, then surrender. "Admiral," his communications officer called, "we're receiving a message from the planet." "Display it," Krell ordered. The image of Ambassador Lee appeared on the screen. The human looked appropriately nervous. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Imperium. I am Ambassador Peter Lee speaking on behalf of Earth's United Council. We wish to discuss the terms of your proposal. Our leaders need more time to consult with all nations of our world. We request an extension of 24 hours to prepare our response." Admiral Krell smiled slightly. They always asked for more time. It was part of the process. The desperate hope that some solution would present itself. "Tell them they have an additional 12 hours, he told his communications officer. "No more." The officer looked surprised. "Only 12, Admiral? We typically grant the full request to appear generous." "I sense something different about these humans," Krell replied. "Their space defenses are mobilizing too efficiently for a species facing first contact. Grant them 12 hours, but increase our scanner strength. I want to know what they're doing with those small satellites they're deploying." Back on Earth, Dr. Eve Daniels stood before the World Defense Council with a plan. Her white hair was pulled back, and despite her age and limp, she stood tall. The pulse disruptor works on the same principle as their shields, she explained. We've been developing this technology in secret for 50 years, since we found that crashed scout ship in Arizona. But you said we'd need to get too close, General Rivera reminded her. Yes, for a direct attack, Eve agreed. But what if we don't attack their ships directly? What if we attack the space around them? She pulled up a diagram showing the Imperium fleet and Earth. Their shields work by creating a bubble of distorted spacetime. If we can create a counter-distortion at just the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt all their shields at once, but only for about 3 seconds. 3 seconds isn't long enough to launch an effective attack, Admiral Ling said through the video conference. It's not meant to be an attack, Eve replied. It's meant to be a warning shot, a demonstration, that we can neutralize their greatest defense. We don't need to destroy them. We just need to scare them enough to reconsider. President Bennett studied the plan carefully. And these satellites you're deploying will create this counter-distortion? Yes, Madam President. We need 240 satellites positioned precisely. Captain Mitchell is coordinating their placement as we speak. The President looked around the room at Earth's leaders. This plan risks everything on a single demonstration. If it fails, we have nothing left. With respect, Madam President, Eve said quietly. If it fails, we never had a chance, to begin with. After a moment of silence, the President nodded. Proceed with Operation Pulse. In space, Susan Mitchell worked tirelessly with her team. Each satellite had to be positioned with perfect precision, forming a giant net around where the Imperium fleet would be in exactly 10 hours. One mistake would ruin everything. Captain, the Imperium ships are scanning our deployment pattern, her sensor officer reported. Susan felt a chill. Adjust satellite paths to look like defensive positioning. Make them think we're just setting up a basic shield network. As Earth prepared its surprise, Admiral Krell grew increasingly suspicious. His science officer, Vex, studied the data from their scans. These humans are deploying a primitive defense grid, Vex reported. Nothing that could withstand even one of our warships. Then why do it at all? Krell wondered. Order the fleet to advance to position Alpha. I want to be in firing range the moment their extended deadline expires. On Earth, people huddled in shelters or with their families. Many prayed. Others simply waited. News screens showed the approaching Imperium fleet, now clearly visible even to ordinary telescopes. Humanity faced its greatest test united but terrified. In the command center, the final hours ticked away. Dr. Russell and Dr. Daniels made last-minute calculations. General Rivera prepared Earth's conventional weapons as a backup plan, and President Bennett recorded what might be her final address to the people of Earth. My fellow humans, she said with calm dignity, today we stand together as one people. Whatever happens in the coming hours, know that humanity faced this challenge with courage and unity. We will not surrender our home without showing the stars what humans are made of. As she finished speaking, alarms sounded. The Imperium fleet had entered lunar orbit ahead of schedule. Earth's moment of truth had arrived sooner than expected. They're testing us, Eve whispered. They want to see if we'll panic. President Bennett stood tall. Then let's show them we won't. Launch Operation Pulse now. The command center fell silent as the satellite network activated. 240 small devices, positioned in a sphere around the approaching Imperium fleet, powered up at once. Their energy signatures were too weak for the alien ships to consider them a threat. That was their first mistake. Captain Susan Mitchell watched from Delta Station as the network came online. Blue lights on her control panel turned green, one by one. All satellites reporting ready, she reported to Earth. Command, awaiting final authorization. In the underground bunker, President Bennett looked at the faces around her. Some showed fear, others determination. All knew this might be humanity's only chance. Dr. Daniels, are you certain this will work? She asked one last time. Eve Daniels stood by her equipment, her aged hands steady on the controls. The pulse disruptor is based on their own technology. We've had 50 years to study it. In theory, it should create a temporary disruption in their shield harmonics. In theory, General Rivera repeated. He didn't sound convinced. Sometimes a theory is all we have, Eve replied quietly. President Bennett took a deep breath. Captain Mitchell, you are authorized to activate Operation Pulse on my mark. She glanced at the countdown clock. 3, 2, 1. Mark. In space, Susan pressed her palm against the scanner. The satellite network activated fully, each unit glowing with power. To anyone watching, it might have seemed like Earth was activating a shield. But they weren't creating a barrier. They were creating a weapon. Aboard the Imperium flagship, alarms suddenly blared. Admiral Krell jumped to his feet. "Report," he demanded. His science officer Vex looked confused. "Energy spike from the human defense grid. But it's not a weapon, I've never seen anything like this." "Raise shields to maximum," Krell ordered. "Already at maximum, Admiral," his defense officer replied. "The energy pattern is strange. It seems to be matching our shield frequency." Krell's eyes widened. That should be impossible. Imperium shield technology was thousands of years beyond what these primitives should possess. On his view screen, he watched as the human satellites glowed brighter. Then a pulse of energy erupted from each one simultaneously converging on his fleet. There was no explosion, no visible beam, just a wave of energy that passed through the Imperium ships like they weren't even there. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then every shield in the Imperium fleet flickered and died. On Delta Station, Susan Mitchell held her breath. The satellite network had burned itself out with that single pulse. They would get no second chance. "Status report," she demanded. Her tactical officer's voice was filled with wonder. "Confirmed hit. All Imperium vessels showing shield failure. Their defense grid is completely down." In the command center, cheers erupted. Eve Daniels closed her eyes in relief. 50 years of work had paid off in those 3 seconds. But the EJAR celebration didn't last long. The Imperium ship's shields began to reactivate almost immediately. "We knew this would happen," Dr. Russell reminded everyone. "The disruption is temporary, but they now know we can take down their shields at will." President Bennett nodded. "Now for Phase 2, Ambassador Lee opened the channel." On screens across Earth and throughout the Imperium fleet, Ambassador Peter Lee appeared. His expression was calm, his voice steady. "Attention, Galactic Imperium. You have witnessed a demonstration of Earth's defensive capabilities. What you experienced was not an attack, merely a warning. We have now proven that we can neutralize your shield technology at will." In the Imperium flagship, Admiral Krell was furious. "How is this possible? Scan those satellites. I want to know what technology they used." "The satellites are burned out, Admiral," Vex reported. "Whatever they did, it required their entire network to generate a single pulse." "Then they've used their only weapon," Krell said, smiling coldly. "Prepare the main cannons. We'll obliterate their pathetic planet." Back on the broadcast, Ambassador Lee continued. "You may be considering an immediate attack. Before you do, there's something else you should know." The view changed to show a massive underground facility. Inside were rows upon rows of devices, identical to the satellites, hundreds of them. "What you witnessed was a single prototype network," Lee explained. "We have 15 more ready to deploy. Our next demonstration won't just disable your shields, it will target your power systems. After that, your life support. We can deploy these networks faster than you can destroy them." It was a bluff. The underground facility was a movie set, the devices merely props. But Admiral Krell had no way to know that. "One moment, please," Ambassador Lee said politely. The transmission paused. In the command center, President Bennett stepped forward. "Time for the final touch. Let's make sure they understand exactly who they're dealing with." The transmission resumed, but now President Bennett stood beside Ambassador Lee. "I am President Diane Bennett of Earth. For thousands of years, humans have fought each other. We've developed weapons of increasing destructive power. We've survived plagues, disasters, and our own violent nature. But we have never faced extinction, and we will not start today." Her eyes were fierce as she continued. The Imperium threatens Earth with destruction. Humanity issues one final warning. Leave our solar system in peace, or face the consequences of a species that has perfected the art of war against itself, and will not hesitate to use that knowledge against an outside threat. In the Imperium flagship, Krell's officers awaited his command. Their weapons were ready. They could still destroy this insolent planet, but doubt had crept into Krell's mind. In 43 conquests, no species had ever managed to neutralize Imperium shields. None had shown such confidence in the face of overwhelming force. Either these humans possessed technology far beyond their apparent development level, or they were the greatest bluffers in the galaxy. Either way, they were dangerous. "Admiral," his weapons officer asked, "shall we fire?" Krell stared at the blue planet on his screen. His instinct was to obliterate it, to make an example of these defiant humans. But his experience told him something else. When facing an unknown threat, gather more information before committing to battle. "Stand down weapons," he ordered finally. "Pull the fleet back to the orbit of their fourth planet." His officers looked shocked. "Admiral, we're retreating?" "Not retreating," Krell corrected sharply. "Tactical redeployment. I want more information about these humans before we engage them further." On Earth, tension filled the command center as they watched the Imperium fleet. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly, the massive ships began to move away from Earth. "They're withdrawing to Mars orbit," Susan reported from Delta Station. "Repeat, the Imperium fleet is withdrawing to Mars orbit." The room erupted in cheers and cries of relief. Dr. Eve Daniels sank into a chair, exhausted but smiling. Dr. Russell patted her shoulder, his eyes bright with unshed tears. President Bennett maintained her composure, though her hands trembled slightly. "This isn't over," she reminded everyone. "They're reassessing, not surrendering. We've bought time, nothing more." General Rivera nodded grimly. "But time is what we needed. If they analyze those burned-out satellites, they'll eventually realize our bluff. We need to make our next move count. And we will," the president promised. "Humanity just faced its greatest challenge and didn't back down. We stood together. Now, we need to prepare for what comes next." As the Imperium ships took position around Mars, humanity had won its first victory, not through superior firepower but through courage, unity, and the element of surprise. The Galactic Imperium had threatened Earth, and humanity's warning had been heard. 3 days passed with the Imperium fleet holding position near Mars. On Earth, celebrations had given way to tense preparation. Everyone knew the aliens were simply pausing to reassess, not giving up. In the command center, the World Defense Council gathered around a large table. The mood was serious but determined. "They're scanning everything," Captain Susan Mitchell reported from Delta Station. "Our satellites, our bases on the moon, even our deep space probes. They're gathering as much information as possible." General Rivera nodded. "As we expected, Admiral Krell isn't a fool. He wants to know if our threat was real before he decides his next move." President Bennett turned to Dr. Eve Daniels. "How are we doing with the real defense system?" Eve smiled. "Slightly. Better than expected. With the data we gathered during the pulse, we've improved the design. The new satellites will be more efficient. Each one can generate 3 pulses before burning out." "And how many do we have?" asked Admiral Ling. 37, Eve admitted. "Not the hundreds we claimed, but better than the 0 we had a week ago," Dr. Alan Russell added. "We're also working on adapting the technology to protect our own systems. If the Imperium attacks, we need to be ready." The president nodded thoughtfully. "So we bought time with our bluff, and we're using that time wisely. But eventually Krell will realize we're not as powerful as we claimed." "Actually," Susan said from the video screen, "I'm not so sure. My team has been monitoring their communications. They seem genuinely concerned. They've mentioned other species that looked primitive but had dangerous hidden technology. They're being cautious." "Good," said General Rivera. "Fear and doubt are our allies now." Ambassador Peter Lee, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. We should consider opening formal diplomatic talks. The longer we keep them talking, the more time we have to build our defenses. And if they demand to inspect our supposed weapons? Asked Admiral Ling. We refuse on security grounds, Lee replied simply. Every nation does the same. It's expected. A refusal won't prove we're bluffing. The president considered this. Open the channel, Ambassador. Let's see if the Imperium is ready to talk instead of threaten. Aboard the Imperium flagship, Admiral Krell studied the data his team had collected. The burned-out satellites were puzzling. Their technology was a strange mix of primitive components and advanced concepts that shouldn't be possible for such a young species. Admiral, his communications officer called. The humans are requesting to open diplomatic talks. Krell's eyes narrowed. Put them through. Ambassador Lee appeared on the screen. Admiral Krell, I bring greetings from Earth. We propose formal negotiations regarding the future relationship between Earth and the Galactic Imperium. Krell studied the human carefully. The Imperium does not typically negotiate with species at your development level. You are offered membership through submission, not dialogue. Lee smiled politely. Yet here we are, having a dialogue. Our demonstration proved that Earth is not a typical case. We believe both sides can benefit from an arrangement that doesn't involve conflict. Before Krell could respond, his science officer Vex entered the command room. Admiral, I must speak with you immediately. It's about the human technology. Krell held up a hand to pause the transmission. What is it, Vex? The science officer looked troubled. The energy signature from their pulse matches records in our oldest archives. Similar technology was once used by the predecessors. The room fell silent. Every Imperium officer knew of the predecessors, an ancient species that had vanished thousands of years ago, leaving only scattered remnants of their advanced technology across the galaxy. That's impossible, Krell whispered. The humans couldn't have. Their device appears to be a crude adaptation of predecessor technology, Vex continued. The question is, where did they get it? And what else might they have found? Krell turned back to the waiting human on his screen. Suddenly, these primitives seemed far more dangerous. The Imperium is willing to open preliminary talks, he said. Carefully. I will send a delegation to your orbital station within 20 Earth hours. After the transmission ended, Krell turned to his officers. Prepare a scout ship for me. I want to see these humans personally. On Earth, preparations began for the first diplomatic meeting between humanity and the Galactic Imperium. Delta Station was chosen as neutral ground, in space but still firmly in Earth's territory. Captain Susan Mitchell oversaw the transformation of the station's main observation deck into a meeting room. I never thought I'd be hosting aliens on my station, she told her team as they worked. Better than fighting them, one technician replied. In the underground facility, Dr. Daniels and Dr. Russell worked frantically to complete 3 new pulse satellites. They wouldn't be part of the diplomatic talks, but everyone felt safer having them ready just in case. Do you think this will work? Alan asked as they calibrated the final device. Diplomacy, I mean. Eve paused, her old hand steady on the controls. Diplomacy always works better when backed by strength. We showed them we have teeth. Now we need to show them we have wisdom too. The next day, a small Imperium ship docked with Delta Station. Security teams stood ready, though they kept their weapons holstered as a sign of good faith. Susan welcomed the delegation personally. Admiral Krell was taller than she expected, his gray skin and 4 eyes making him undeniably alien. Yet there was intelligence in those eyes, and caution. Welcome to Earth Space, Admiral, she said formally. I'm Captain Susan Mitchell, commander of this station. Krell studied her with all 4 eyes. Your demonstration was impressive, Captain. Few species have ever surprised the Imperium as Earth has. Susan maintained her composure. We prefer to make friends rather than enemies, Admiral, but we will defend our home if necessary. So I've seen, he replied. In the meeting room, Admiral Krell faced President Bennett and the Earth delegation across a round table, a human symbol of equality, that wasn't lost on the alien leader. The Imperium claims this star system as part of its territory, Krell began. This is not negotiable. President Bennett didn't flinch. Earth claims this star system as our home. That is also not negotiable. For a tense moment, the two leaders stared at each other. Then Ambassador Lee smoothly intervened. Perhaps we're approaching this wrong, he suggested. Instead of competing claims, maybe we should discuss mutual interests. The galaxy is vast. Surely there's room for cooperation rather than conflict. Krell's upper eyes blinked, a sign of consideration in his species. The Imperium has never faced a species like yours. You appear primitive, yet you possess technology that should be beyond your reach. You are few in number, yet you stand defiant before a superior force. Humans have always been full of surprises, President Bennett said with a slight smile. Even to ourselves. Perhaps, Krell admitted. My science officer believes you've discovered predecessor technology. Is this true? A flash of confusion crossed the humans' faces. They exchanged glances and Dr. Daniels spoke up from her seat at the back of the room. We don't know who built the ship we found, she said honestly. It crashed in our desert 50 years ago. Most of it was destroyed, but we studied what remained. If these predecessors created that ship, then yes, our pulse technology is based on their work. Krell's posture changed subtly. Interesting. Very few species ever find such artifacts, and fewer still can decode them. Humans are good at solving puzzles, Eve replied simply. As the meeting continued, something unexpected happened. The tension began to ease as both sides talked about technology, space, and their different worlds. For the first time, they were speaking as potential allies rather than enemies. Finally, Admiral Krell made his decision. The Imperium will establish an outpost on your fourth planet as our forward base in this sector. Earth will maintain its independence, provided you share information about any other predecessor technology you discover. President Bennett considered the offer. It wasn't perfect, but it was far better than the destruction they had faced days earlier. We accept these terms, she said, with one addition. The Imperium will recognize Earth's sovereignty over this entire solar system. Your base on Mars will operate only with our permission. Krell's eyes narrowed, but after a moment, he nodded. Agreed. As the meeting ended, Captain Susan Mitchell escorted the alien delegation back to their ship. Admiral Krell paused before boarding. Your species is young, Captain, but remarkable. I look forward to seeing what you become. Susan smiled. So do we, Admiral. So do we. As the Imperium ship undocked, Susan watched it return to the main fleet. The immediate danger had passed. Earth had faced its greatest threat and emerged not just alive but recognized, a new player in a much larger game than humanity had ever imagined. In the command center, President Bennett addressed the world. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for Earth. We have met an alien power as equals, not as subjects. The road ahead will not be easy, but we will walk it together, united as one human family. Dr. Eve Daniels watched the speech from her lab, smiling as she worked on the next generation of pulse technology. The crashed ship that had defined her life's work wasn't just a scientific curiosity anymore. It was humanity's key to the stars. 6 months passed since the historic agreement between Earth and the Galactic Imperium. The Red Plains of Mars now hosted a small Imperium outpost where alien ships came and went. Earth had insisted the base remain small, just enough for diplomatic and scientific purposes, not a military stronghold. Life on Earth had changed forever. Humans looked up at the night sky with new understanding. They were not alone, and the universe was both more wonderful and more dangerous than they had imagined. Captain Susan Mitchell had been promoted to admiral and now commanded Earth's growing space fleet. Today, she was traveling to Mars for her first inspection of the Imperium outpost. Her ship, the Defiance, was Earth's newest vessel, built with a combination of human and adapted alien technology. Approaching Mars orbit, Admiral, her pilot reported. Susan nodded. Signal the Imperium base. Let them know we're on schedule. As the Defiance circled the red planet, Susan saw the Imperium facility below. It was elegant in its alien way, curved, structures that shimmered in the Martian sunlight. A familiar voice came through the communications system. "Admiral Mitchell, this is Admiral Krell. Welcome to Mars Outpost 1. We are ready to receive your delegation." Susan smiled slightly. In the months since their first meeting, she and Krell had developed a cautious respect for each other. "Thank you, Admiral. We're beginning our descent now." On Earth, President Diane Bennett met with the World Defense Council. The mood was different from their tense meetings during the crisis, still serious, but with an undercurrent of hope. "The Mars inspection is proceeding as planned," General Rivera reported. "Admiral Mitchell's team will ensure the Imperium is honoring all aspects of our agreement." Dr. Eve Daniels, now heading Earth's new Advanced Technology Division, added, her report, "Our progress with the predecessor technology continues to exceed expectations. We've developed improved shield systems for all major cities and our space vessels." "And what about the Imperium? Have they shared information as promised?" the President asked. Ambassador Peter Lee nodded. "Yes, though carefully. They've provided star charts of nearby systems and basic information about other species we might eventually encounter. They're still protective of their advanced technology, but that's to be expected." "And have they explained more about these predecessors?" President Bennett asked, turning to Dr. Alan Russell. Alan shook his head. "Not much. The Imperium themselves have limited knowledge. The predecessors vanished thousands of years ago, leaving only scattered remnants of their technology across the galaxy. Finding even small pieces of their work is considered incredibly valuable, which explains their interest in our crashed ship," Eve added, "and why they're treating us with more respect than they initially planned." The President nodded thoughtfully. "So we lucked into an advantage, a cosmic lottery ticket that saved Earth from conquest." "Luck favors the prepared," Dr. Russell replied. "We spent 50 years studying that technology, working to understand it. Many other species might have simply destroyed the crash site or failed to grasp its significance." On Mars, Susan Mitchell walked beside Admiral Krell through the Imperium outpost. Despite their physical differences, they had learned to read each other's body language. Today, Krell seemed troubled. "Something's bothering you, Admiral," Susan said directly. Humans had quickly learned that the Imperium respected straightforwardness. Krell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of consideration. "You are perceptive, Admiral Mitchell." "Yes, I received concerning news from Imperium Command yesterday. Another empire, the Zorax Dominion, has been expanding aggressively in this sector. They are not like us. The Imperium conquers to bring order and stability. The Zorax destroy simply because they can." Susan frowned. "And they're heading toward our solar system?" "Not immediately. But within a few of your years, yes, they likely will be." Krell turned all 4 eyes to her. "The Imperium fleet that came to your world 6 months ago would not be enough to stop them." Susan understood the implication. Earth had barely managed to stand against the Imperium. Against this new threat, even the Imperium itself was concerned. "Why tell me this?" she asked. "Because despite our rocky beginning, I have come to respect humanity," Krell replied. "Your species accomplished in 50 years what takes most 1,000, adapting predecessor technology to your own use. Given time, humans might become valuable allies to the Imperium. If we survive the Zorax," Susan noted. Indeed. When Susan returned to Earth, an emergency meeting of the World Defense Council was called. The room fell silent as she described what Krell had told her. "So after escaping one alien conquest, we're facing another?" General Rivera asked grimly. "Not immediately," Susan replied. "We have time to prepare. And something else. Krell has offered Imperium assistance with our defense systems." Dr. Daniels raised her eyebrows. "That's unexpected. Why would they help us?" "Self-interest, Ambassador," Lee suggested. "If the Zorax conquer Earth, the Imperium loses their foothold in this sector. Better to have us as a buffer than nothing at all." President Bennett considered this. "Or perhaps there's more to it. Admiral Mitchell, what's your impression of Krell's motives?" Susan thought carefully before answering. I believe he genuinely respects what humanity accomplished. We surprised them. We stood up to a superior force and earned our place. In their culture, that matters. The president nodded. Then we accept their help, but cautiously, and we accelerate our own development programs. Dr. Russell spoke up. There's something else to consider. The crashed ship we found. What if it's not the only predecessor artifact on Earth? They may have visited our world thousands of years ago. There could be other sites, other technology waiting to be discovered. The idea spread through the room like electricity. If Earth held more ancient alien technology, it might change everything. I want search teams organized immediately, the president ordered. Start with ancient sites that have always puzzled archaeologists, and keep it quiet. We don't need to advertise what we're looking for to the rest of the galaxy. 3 weeks later, in a remote area of the Amazon rainforest, the first discovery was made. A research team uncovered structures deep underground that no human civilization could have built. The materials were unlike anything on Earth, preserved perfectly after thousands of years. And in an underground chamber they found it, a complete predecessor data archive. While most of it was unreadable with current technology, even the small portions they could access contained knowledge far beyond anything the Imperium had shared. When Dr. Daniels reported the find to the president, she couldn't keep the excitement from her voice. This changes everything. With this knowledge, we might be able to defend against the Zorax or any other threat. President Bennett asked the question everyone was thinking. Should we tell the Imperium what we've found? After a long discussion, the decision was made. Earth would share some information, enough to strengthen the alliance, but not everything. Some secrets would remain humanity's alone. 1 year to the day after the Imperium fleet first entered Earth's solar system, representatives from both worlds gathered on Delta Station. What had begun as a near conquest had evolved into an uneasy partnership, now growing stronger in the face of a common enemy. Admiral Susan Mitchell stood at the window, looking out at Earth below. So much had changed, and so much more change was coming. The Imperium had threatened Earth, and humanity had issued its warning. But now the greatest challenges and opportunities lay ahead. We were lucky, Dr. Eve Daniels said, joining her at the window. Susan shook her head. Not just lucky, determined, united, clever. She smiled slightly. Human. Eve nodded, her aged face reflective. For all our history, we looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know the truth. The universe is filled with both wonders and dangers. And humanity will face them all, Susan replied confidently, just as we always have. As they spoke, the next generation of Earth's defense satellites moved into position, their design now incorporating both human ingenuity and alien knowledge. On the planet below, teams of scientists worked to unlock more secrets from the predecessor archives. And in shipyards around the world, a fleet was growing. A fleet that would one day take humanity beyond their solar system. The Empire had threatened Earth. Humanity had issued one final warning. And now, united as never before, they prepared to take their place among the stars. The end.